Good morning, everybody. Good to see all of you in the room. Good to know that there are many of you gathered outside of this room, those in West Side and in 218 and watching online at home, wherever you are. I'm so glad that you made some time to be with us this morning. Now, how many of you would say that you feel like you're in the Christmas spirit? People that came on the bus. You guys are my favorite people, by the way, because you get to sit closer together, and so there's more energy over here. So sorry to you guys if I favor them. Sorry to people there. But you guys are like my favorite to just know. You guys you want to be here more than anything. Your parents didn't make you come. At least I don't think so. I don't think they did. But how many of you, by a show of hands, how many people feel like they're in the Christmas spirit? Okay, you're allowed to not be. I feel like I've been asking the question lately, what is the Christmas spirit? What does that mean? What does it mean to have the spirit of Christmas, to be filled with it? My wife likes to make fun of me because she likes to do things like put on the Christmas carols when we're driving around the city. And I'll be like, oh, turn it on. I hate these songs. And she's like, you got no Christmas spirit. I'm like, what's that mean? Does that come from these songs? I gotta like these cheesy old songs in order to have the spirit of Christmas? What is that? Is it the movies? You gotta watch The White Christmas with, Bing Crosby and dancing around and just out of the black and white versions. And is it that? Is it the movies that we watch fill us with the spirit of Home Alone, Die Hard? Is it those? Is that the spirit? Is it the decorations? You may have noticed a couple weeks ago, there was a change. The atrium out there was transformed. The stage looks different now. Is this the Christmas spirit? Is that where it comes from? There's certain decorations, certain colors. Those are the things that give us the spirit of Christmas. I know that when I was younger, Christmas had a magic to it. Right? It was a magical time of year, mostly because of presents. Because you were gonna get all of these presents. And even though your parents told you you gotta be good to get the presents, you're like, I know I'm getting presents regardless. I know I might have to get a talking to, but I'm gonna get presents. There was presents, there was lights everywhere. Oh, the beautiful lights. I tried to bring my kids to walk through Waterloo Park to look at the lights. They were 2 minutes of awe, then this is lame, let's get out of here. But there was the lights, and everybody on the block was putting up lights. There was desserts. Oh, just all of the desserts. And it seemed like the rules around eating desserts were very laxed around our house around Christmas. And there was no school. Christmas, when I was younger, had this sort of magic to it. But now that I'm older, I'm the one who has to pay for the presents. And I'm the one who has to put up the lights, which I don't. But I saw my neighbor trying to do it on the windiest day of the year so far, and we were all watching him in amazement. Look, kids, we're gonna see our neighbor die today. This is gonna be interesting. But I gotta put up the lights, or at least think about the light, or making up an excuse for why I don't put up the lights. And I'm the one who's gotta worry about where the desserts are going and where they're adding up around my waistline. And I'm the one who has to be at home with the kids because they're not at school. And so this season that used to have this magic to it, it feels like it's lost some of its magic. And the Christmas spirit, I feel a little bit like Cindy Lou Who. Cindy? What does she sing? Where are you, Christmas? Trying out for worship. Hey, there we go. Where can't I find you? Terrible, I know. But that sentiment of I used to feel like I had a grasp of Christmas, and now it comes and it goes, and I wake up on Christmas Day and I don't feel the same feeling. And so what we're gonna do today is I wanna talk to people that are missing that feeling, that are missing the sense of I feel filled with the spirit of Christmas, and we're gonna find it. And we're gonna find what is this spirit of Christmas? What does it mean to be filled with it? And in order to find it, we're gonna go back to our origin documents, also called the Bible. And we're gonna go back to the roots of Christmas, and we're gonna learn from Jesus's mom the spirit of Christmas, the meaning of Christmas, because you'd think she might know, right? She might know. If I couldn't ask Jesus himself, who else could I ask? What's Christmas all about? His mom is not a bad guess. And so we've been in this series now. This is the second week of a series that we're calling the Magnificat, which is a song or these words that come out of Mary when she is with her cousin Elizabeth, and she's still pregnant with Jesus. And she kind of erupts into this song where she is reacting to the news of Jesus. And she's reacting and she's giving us an explanation of what this baby means and who he will be and what he is going to do. And so we started looking at this. Ken looked at the first part of the Magnificat last week, and it goes like this. Mary said, "My soul glorifies the Lord." This word glorifies is actually, you could translate it magnifies, which is where we get the word Magnificat, which is why we call it the Magnificat. It is Mary erupting into this sort of like, I want to magnify God. I want to make him bigger. I want to worship him. And my spirit rejoices in God, my Savior, for he has been mindful of the humble state of his servant. From now on, all generations will call me blessed. For the mighty one has done great things for me. Holy is his name. So this was last week, the first part. Mary erupts into this song, and she's like, first thing we got to do, worship God. Worship him, like magnify his name. But then the second part that we're going to look at this morning, the second part of the Magnificat, the middle part of it, it takes on a bit of a different tone. And so you're ready? We're going to read it. You ready? Here we go. His mercy extends to those who fear him from generation to generation. He has performed mighty deeds with his arm. He has scattered those who are proud in their inmost thoughts. He has brought down rulers from their thrones, but has lifted up the humble. He has filled the hungry with good things, but has sent the rich away empty. Now, if you haven't heard these words before, you may not have picked up on it, but these are not generally the words that we write on our Christmas cards. Did anybody get a Christmas card this year? Merry Christmas, may he rip down the rulers from their thrones. Happy holidays, send those rich away empty. Probably, I've been looking for it, and I don't find these themes in many of what we call our Christmas spirit. And yet this, if asked, would be Mary's answer. This is what Mary would say. These words that Mary says, that we're going to look at deeper into as we go on, are revolutionary words. These are revolutionary words. These are dangerous words. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who was a pastor in Nazi Germany, once preached a sermon during Advent in Nazi Germany where he spoke about the dangerousness of these words. And he said this: the Song of Mary is the oldest Advent hymn, Advent being the season leading into Christmas. It is at once the most passionate, the wildest, one might even say the most revolutionary Advent hymn ever sung. This is not the gentle, tender, dreamy Mary whom we sometimes see in paintings. This song has none of the sweet, nostalgic, or even playful tones of some of our Christmas carols. It is instead a hard, strong, inexorable song about the power of God and the powerlessness of humankind. This is a dangerous, revolutionary song. This Magnificat was actually banned and has been banned by different countries throughout history. It was banned in India during when the British ruled there. It's been banned in Guatemala and Argentina. And you know the reason why it was banned in those countries? Because it gives too much hope to the poor. Because if the poor heard this and they started reciting it in public, they might actually be inspired to think that God is on their side. They might actually be inspired to think that things could really change for them. And if we're in control and we're in power, well, we don't want that now, do we? And so this song throughout history at different times has actually been banned or tucked away into the corner. Let's not emphasize that at Christmas. And yet I think if you were to ask Mary, she would say, no, this is what Christmas is all about. This is the spirit of Christmas. And so let's break down what she's talking about. What is she saying in these lines? What she's saying is that she's talking about the beginning of a movement that God is beginning. That this baby in her womb is the beginning of something that God is doing, and it's something that her people had longed for many, many centuries. That God would begin to move and begin to set up his rule and his reign, you could say his kingdom in the world. That he would begin to make the world look the way that he wants it to look. And as a part of this movement, he is going to be against certain people, and he is going to be for other people. And so Mary says he's going to be against these people, that he has scattered those who are proud in their inmost thoughts. He has brought down rulers from their thrones, and he is sending the rich away empty. Mary's like, God is moving. God is doing something. This is the beginning of something big that God is doing. And you know what it is? He's going to be scattering the proud, bringing down rulers or the powerful, and sending the rich away empty. And these are all themes that you can find in the teachings of Jesus. So what Mary says, God is doing something, he's beginning something in me. Later, when Jesus begins his ministry, he picks up on all of these themes and he says them again. And so anyone who knows Mary's words would be like, this is similar. Your mom forecasted that this was what this movement was going to be all about. So why would God be against these people? Proud, rulers, rich. The proud and the rulers, I think they kind of go together. It's almost like if you are a ruler who is proud, a ruler who thinks that you are better than other people, a ruler who wants to exalt themselves. Well, God's like, that's not what I want in my world. I don't want the people that are in charge to be thinking like, this is all about me. I'm going to lord it over other people. And he's like, so those people, they're going to be torn down. Because in my kingdom, that's not what a ruler looks like. When Jesus picks up on this theme in Matthew chapter 23, he's teaching his disciples. And he begins to teach them. He says, you guys know what the religious leaders are like, right? You know what they're like. You know what it feels like to be under their rule, right? They're always lifting themselves up. They try to make themselves look like we're the most spiritual people. Nobody's as spiritual as us. They place burdens on you that you can't possibly carry yourself. And he's like, you know what that feels like, right? He's like, I don't want you to be like that. He says this, the greatest among you will be your servant. For those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. Those who exalt themselves, people who are proud and lift themselves into places of power, I'm gonna humble them. In Mary's words, they will be scattered. I think of my kids building up like a Magna-Tiles fortress, and one of them comes into the room and just smashes the whole thing. I think of the proud ruling class as having built a kingdom for themselves. And God's like, that kingdom built on your pride, built around you, I am coming to scatter it. I am coming to destroy it. Why is God against the proud and the rulers? He's like, because that's not what I want my world to look like. And then Mary says, and the rich will be sent away empty. Why are the rich being sent away empty? Well, on the face of the Magnificat, that you could just kind of do a little bit of logic there. It says that God is going to fill the hungry and send the rich away empty. Maybe because God was looking down upon the rich saying, you saw that there was hungry people in the world, right? Why do I have to come and feed the hungry? If you were rich, why didn't you just feed the hungry? God's talking about a certain type of world that he wants to look down upon. And John, who walked with Jesus, writes, I think, one of the most challenging, disturbing lines for us about this. When he talks about the love of God. He talks about the love of God, how God is love, and God wants the world to look like Jesus. He wants the world to look like a world of love. And then he talks about those of us who have material possessions. He says this is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid his life down for us. And we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers and sisters as well. And so you get this picture of like, okay, God is love. We know what love is because it looks like Jesus coming from his God-like throne. He comes from the throne. He comes down to live poor among us and to sacrifice his life for us. That's what love is. And when you may hear that and go, oh, okay, so that's like, I can picture that and I'll try to line my life up with that. But John doesn't let us off the hook there. He then gives us a very practical application of what this love looks like in action. He says, therefore, if anyone has material possessions and sees a brother or sister in need, but has no pity on them, how can the love of God be in that person? You want to be a part of God's move. You want to be a person who says, I'm filled with the love of God and I'm moving on his behalf. Well, then John would challenge you, well, if you're rich, if you have material possessions, how could you say that you're actually a part of that movement of love, of that kingdom of love? How could you say that you're a part of that if you don't help them, if you don't have pity on them? How could you say that the love of God is truly within you? I think John picks up on this idea of the rich being sent away empty. When I think about the rich being sent away empty too, I think about Jesus' interaction with the rich young ruler. A young man who apparently is very rich comes to Jesus and he wants to join Jesus' kingdom movement. He wants to join in on what he sees God is doing through Jesus in the world. He's like, Jesus, how do I be a part of this life? I want to gain this life that you have, that you put on offer. Jesus is like, well, just obey all the commandments. He's like, I've done that my whole life. And Jesus looks at him and it's almost like there'd be this pause where Jesus knows he's about to challenge this young man. And he says to him, one thing you lack, go and sell all of your possessions, give the money to the poor, then come and follow me. And the rich young man walks away sad. You could say he walks away empty. Why does he walk away empty? He walks away empty because he didn't come hungry enough. He wasn't truly hungry for Jesus' kingdom because he had his own kingdom. He had built a whole life of comfort and wealth and safety for himself. And though he wanted what Jesus was offering, when Jesus is like, in order to truly grab hold of this, you have to let go of that whole other kingdom. He walks away sad. He's sent away empty. The Magnificat is declaring that God is on the move, and he is on the move against these sorts of people, the proud, the powerful, and the rich. And this, to be able to celebrate this, is a part of being filled with the spirit of Christmas. But the other thing that the Magnificat says is not just that God is moving against a certain type of people, but that he is also moving on behalf of a certain type of people. And the people that he's moving on behalf of, Mary begins by calling them this: his mercy extends to those who fear him. People who fear God, people who have a reverence for God. This is a major theme all throughout the Bible. We translate the word fear, and so sometimes we're like, that's hard to think of, like being afraid of God, but just think of it as like, I am more afraid of him than anything else that could happen to me. I'm more afraid of ever having him turn his back on me, ever losing his presence. I fear that above all other things. It is like this ultimate posture of just your face down before God, saying, God, you are God, and I am so not God. And not a bone in my body desires to try to be God. That is what it means to be a person filled with the fear of God. And Mary says, the people that God is moving on behalf of, the people that he's extending his mercy to, the people that he is going to look down upon their lowly state and give them good things, those people will be people who first of all fear him above all else. And then she goes on and says that he's going to lift up the humble. He's going to fill the hungry with good things. Another theme that you could see in there is that because God is tearing down the powerful, that he is going to lift up the humble or the powerless. And so God is moving on behalf of those who fear him, those who are humble, those who are hungry, those who are powerless, those who are poor. And this picture of this type of person is actually a theme in the Old Testament. And the theme goes under this term, the Anawim. Can you say that with me? Anawim. It's going to be an important word for the rest of the morning. Anawim. And the Anawim in the Old Testament are those who are bowed down. That's the literal meaning of the word. It is those who are bowed down. It is those who find themselves as lowly, poor, oppressed, and marginalized. But not just those who find themselves in this state, but those who find themselves in this state and instead of being angry about it, instead of being vengeful about it, instead of being pessimistic all the time about it, instead they move themselves to a place of saying, well, then I guess I'll just have to be dependent on God. I guess I'll just live a life where I am grateful for everything that he gives me. I guess I'll just live a life where I am filled with humility for my lot in life. This is a theme developed all throughout the Old Testament, and this word anoim is found all throughout the Old Testament, especially in the Psalms. And I want to show you an example of where you can find it in the Psalms. Psalm 37 says, a little while, and the wicked will be no more. Though you look for them, they will not be found. So there's a similar theme of the powerful, the prideful, the rich being torn down. In a little while, you're not going to find those people anymore. But the meek will inherit the land. And this word that we interpret meek is actually the Hebrew word anoim. And so if you've ever heard the word meek and thought, I don't really know what meek means, you do a Google search and you're like, I still don't know what meek means. It's not the word meek, it's the word anoim, which is the lowly or the poor or the marginalized, those who have become humbled themselves before God, who are dependent on him, who are grateful to him. But the meek, the anoim, will inherit the land and enjoy peace and prosperity. Jesus picks up on this theme, right? The meek will inherit the land. How does Jesus say it when he comes and preaches his Sermon on the Mount? The meek shall inherit not just the land, but the whole earth. Jesus is quoting this psalm. And he's speaking to the anoim that would have been listening to this sermon, and he's saying to them, I am preaching about a movement of God that is for you. To the lowly people listening to him, to the marginalized and the poor listening to him, he's saying, this sermon, this movement, this kingdom, it's for you. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are the anoim, for you shall inherit the earth. In Luke chapter 1 is where we find the Magnificat, where Mary sings these themes. In Luke chapter 4, we get Jesus' first sermon, where he's in a synagogue one day and he finds the place in the scroll of Isaiah that he wants to read. And he reads these words that echo the words of his mother. The Spirit of the Lord is on me, because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. The spirit of Christmas is God saying, I'm going to move against the prideful, the powerful, and the rich. And instead, I am going to be moving on behalf of the anoim, the hungry, the humbled, the lowly, those who fear God. So the question for us is, do we want to be filled with this spirit? Do we want to be able to celebrate this news? Can you hear Mary's words and celebrate that this is what God wants to do at Christmas time? I think for some of us, we have to kind of do like a bit of a self-analysis and say, well, which of these two camps do I find myself in this morning? Am I in the camp that God is moving against? Or am I in the camp that God is moving for? One of the interesting things that Mary says is that God is going to scatter the proud in their inmost thoughts. And so maybe a first thing for us to do this morning is to just say, am I the proud? Not do other people see me as proud. No, Mary says in the inmost thoughts. So maybe what we need to do this Christmas season to get into the spirit is to spend some time alone, praying, asking God, reveal to me anywhere where pride lurks in my heart. Anywhere where I say to myself secretly and nobody knows, you're actually better than them. You're better than them. You deserve more than them. Maybe that's part of what it means to get into the Christmas spirit, is to say, I don't want to be a part of the proud. I'm not inviting God to scatter me. So instead I'll invite God, get rid of this pride within me. What about if you find yourself being a person of power, a person who's rich? It's not lost on me that I would place myself on a global scale in that category, powerful and rich. And it's not lost on me that many of you, if you were being honest, would also or should also place yourself in that category. And so what do? God, I find myself, I'm a person of power. I have great means. What do I do? I don't want you to be moving against. I don't want you sending me away empty. Well, that's a good first place to begin. And I think we have to wrestle with this because the complexities of what to do in a world filled with need, when many of us have so much, it's a complex thing to wrestle with. Well, what is the best use of my means? But perhaps your prayer just needs to become, God, I want to join you in your work of lifting up the humble and filling the hearts of the hungry. God, I want to join you. I want to align myself with your work. I want to align myself with your work of lifting up the Anawim. And then for anybody among us who feels maybe, well, actually, I don't feel like I'm not feeling like God's speaking to me about those being in that category. I actually feel like I feel more like I am the Anawim this morning. Well, then to you, the message is to simply believe and to trust that no matter how beaten down you feel, no matter how hurt you feel, no matter how low and poor you feel, this season is actually for you. That in this season, God wants to speak to you and let you know that he is for you. One of the things that I learned this week as I was kind of just studying different things about Mary in this passage is that Mary gave birth to Jesus in Bethlehem. And so after she spoke the Magnificat to Elizabeth, many months later, she finds herself in Bethlehem giving birth to Jesus. And one of the things that she could probably see from Bethlehem was a thing or a place called the Herodium. And the Herodium was Herod's palace. It was his palace fortress. And so imagine King Herod, king of the Jews, Herod, has this amazing palace built for him, filled with bathhouses and places where great feasts could be had, and a theater where entertainment could be brought in. And he even built up this Herodium on a man-made hill so that everybody could see it from miles around. Well, Bethlehem is only 5 kilometers from the Herodium, which means very likely Mary could see the Herodium from the humble place that she gave birth to Jesus. Which means that while she carried these words in her heart, okay, what is God doing? What is God doing? I am caught up in a movement of God. What has he said that he is doing in this movement? He's bringing mercy to those who fear him. He's lifting up the humble. He wants to fill the hungry. Okay, that's what he wants to do. And then I open my eyes and what do I see? I see the Herodium, which is a tangible, visible presence that what God has said he's going to do, he hasn't done yet. Which I'd imagine was a tension of faith for Mary to believe like, God, you're really gonna do this? You're really gonna tear down this structure? You're really gonna move against like the great power of Herod and the Roman Empire? Like you're gonna tear that down somehow. And so if you would count yourself among the Anawim this morning, I just want you to know that you are in good company. Because Mary would have felt many of the same things that you feel, which is, okay, great, God is for me, he's on my side, he's gonna do great things. It doesn't look that way today. And Mary knows exactly what that feels like. And then lastly, if you count yourself among the Anawim, I want you to hear the words of Jesus speaking blessing over you. Blessed are you when it feels like the reigning social system is against you. Blessed are you when it feels like you just can't get ahead and it feels like the powers that be are constantly crushing you. Blessed are you. Blessed are you when it feels like you don't have enough money. When it feels like you don't have enough money to give the people that you love gifts at Christmas, when you don't know where the next money to put the food on the table is coming from, where you don't know how you're gonna pay the bills this month. Blessed are you because the God of the Anawim is on the move, and the Anawim shall inherit the earth. One last image for you to maybe take home to kind of bring this message into your homes. How many of you have a nativity set in your home, a nativity scene in your house? Okay, if you don't have one, get one. I feel like Woody. Everybody got a moving buddy? If you don't have one, get like, if you got one of those, you should definitely have a nativity set scene. But when you look at that nativity scene, it's a reminder of this story, right? It's a reminder of what God was doing in the initial phases of this kingdom movement that he's bringing. And who does God invite? He invites Mary and Joseph. They're caught up in the story. And then who's next on God's invite list? Is it King Herod? No. Is it any king? Is it any rich and powerful person that gets the invite? No. It's these guys, the shepherds. They're the first ones on God's invite list. Now there's some debate around just how lowly and outcast these particular shepherds were, but there really isn't any debate that they clearly were not at the top of the social rung. And so shepherds were generally thought to be uneducated, dirty, unclean. Some scholars mention that they're considered dishonest, and they weren't even allowed to testify in a court scenario. So they're not on the top, they're on the bottom. And God decides first on the invite list. And so when I play through the Christmas story in my mind and I think of the shepherds getting the invite, they get the invite, right? They're out in their fields at night, and an angel appears and speaks, and then many angels appear and speak to them, that they probably were like, oh, this is so great. God, thanks for inviting us to the party. I mean, we were probably the last to know, but we appreciate that we've been invited. And then they start to make their way to Mary and Joseph, all the while logically thinking, I wonder, well, when we get there, if it's probably going to be crowds of people because we're some of the last to know. And then as they approach, they realize, oh, nobody's even here anymore. Wow, we're so late. We're so late that everybody's already gone. We're at the end of the party. Well, at least we still get to be here. But that eventually, once they started talking to Mary and Joseph, they realized, oh, we're not the last ones invited. We're the first ones invited. And I imagine that as they had this conversation with Mary, perhaps Mary eventually burst into this song. And she said to them, this baby has come to extend mercy to those who fear God. He has come to lift up the humble, and he has come to fill the hungry. This is the beginning of God's revolution. And he wanted you to be the first to know. And so if you find yourself this morning as one of the Anoim, then I pray that you will find comfort this Christmas season, knowing that this season, the spirit of this season, is for you. And for those of us who would be honest and say, actually, I might be more in the other camp, then I pray that we will be disturbed enough to ask God to transform us and give us the heart of the Anoim, so that we can join him and align ourselves with what he is doing in the world. Let me pray for you before we go. God, it is a good thing for you to disturb us, because it means that you love us. If you didn't love us, you wouldn't bother speaking to us. And so for anybody that feels convicted by Mary's words, may they hear them as an invitation. In the past, the rich and the powerful and the prideful have been threatened by these words. But this morning, we want to hear them as an invitation into something new. God, we say yes to this invitation to change and to be captured by the true spirit of Christmas. Holy Spirit, would you empower us to be changed? Would you do your work in our hearts this week when we spend time alone with you, alone staring at our nativity scenes? And Jesus, we ask that this work be done in your name. Amen.